Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we'll be looking into how to set up database connection. For our database, we will be using cloud-hosted MongoDB from Mongo Atlas. Go ahead and sign up. Once you sign up to the Cloud Console, you would be taken into this screen. Maybe you might be asked to create a new project. Once you create a project, go inside it and we would create a new deployment or new cluster. We'll be selecting the share one as that's the one that is free, and I will be selecting the Oregon one, US West 2, that is the cluster, that is the region I'm closest to, and we'll name it to US West S2. So go ahead and create the cluster. When you create the cluster, it will ask you to create username and password because that is the credential your application would use to connect to the database. I have already created one. You can go ahead and create one, and also it will ask you to whitelist your IP address because database needs to have, like, Mongo Atlas need to allow connection from that IP address. So go click finish and close. Once this is created, it will take some time. In the meantime, let's go and write some code. So here in our application, inside the internal directory, create a new folder called db, and inside the db folder we'll create db.go. Let's declare the package db. Now here we'll create a function called new db connection. What this function will do for us is it will initiate connection to the Mongo Atlas and also return us with a client. So let's enter. Let's go and to the cluster, click connect. It will select connect your application, and this is the code snippet. What we will do is we'll copy this, we will install the package Mongo so that our application can use it. Once this is done, we will just copy this bit and paste it here. Now there are some things that needs to be changed. First of all, connection URL, we don't want to statically assign it here, so instead of that we will be passing it as a string, connection URL and connection URL string. So we will be passing connection URL as a string to this function. Let's save it somewhere here. We will update it later. And also in the meantime, we will be, as we discussed, this will return us with a new Mongo client. So we will return the client, and also our application would return error as well. Since we were able to create a client, the error would be nil. Let's update it here. The client type is *mongo.client. So mongo.client, and error as well. So here also, instead of doing log fatal, we would return nil, fmb dot, add some context and send it back to the function caller. We would write could not create a new Mongo database client. Yeah, so now we need to make sure we pass this string from our YAML file. So go to your YAML file and we'll update it. db, we'll add a new section db, and it will hold URL. Let's copy this bit here. So since we updated our config YAML file, we need to update our config Go as well. So we would go to your config type, add db, create a new struct which will hold the URL, and URL is a string, and the YAML tag for this is URL. We will need to add this db to our config as well, db, which is, and the YAML tag for this is just db. Okay, now we have passed in the config YAML. Make sure you update the password here. I will just write it here. Don't worry about it. I will delete the cluster every single time, so and generate a new credential. So yeah, it does it you don't have to worry about. Also, it is not considered good practice to commit secrets directly. This is a secret and we don't want to commit it accidentally to our get our source control repo. So instead of this, what we can do is we can pass it through our environment variable db underscore url. Let's create a export the environment variable. Now in order to tell uh, code, this value should be pulled in from the environment variable, and we would need to update code here as well, which will actually read from the environment called read and we pass the config variable. This returns an error. Let's handle it. Now equal to nil, then we'll just do same, could not read and was. Since error is already declared here, okay, now we fixed this. We are passing the YAML secret from our environment variable, and now let's go to our server and inject database dependency. So first of all, let's create our database client db.newConnection, and from here we would be passing config .db.url, that is a string since we already passed config from here. This will return us with a db client error. This db client error, and if error not equals to nil, then we would return nil in place of server and return error saying could not create new database connection. And now if the connection was successful and the client was returned, we would inject it as a db client and inject this one here. We would need to update our struct as well, db client, and it's of type mongo.client. Okay, now we have injected database dependency to our application. Now for our handler to access this database client, we would need to convert them into pointer receivers. So the way you can do that is, instead of doing this, we call in register route via function server, and we will make this a receiver function. Now since we are already making it a receiver function, all the router would be accessed through the server instance, so we don't need to pass router here. So basically you can just access it through s.router. Same goes for check live as well. We will just go to the handler, make it a receiver function, and here as well we will just call it through the server. This way you can access all the server dependencies, which are the config or router information or database client from the handler. So we did the connection. Now we need to make sure database connection was successful or not, right? So the way you can do that is you can actually print it, or I like to do it using the readiness probe. So create a new handler called check ready, and it will just print whether the server is ready to receive the connection or not. Let's quickly add a route for that. Yes, route get slash ready, which will be our readiness route endpoint, and we'll call check ready. Now basically why we are doing this is the above one would check whether the API is running or not, whether the server is running. The check ready or check like slash ready handler or endpoint would check whether the server is ready to receive the connection or not. So here in the readiness pro, what we will do is we will call the database client, and there is a function to check whether the connection is successful, or database, so whether the application is able to connect to database or not. You need to pass the context and the preference as well. Read preference will do the primary, and this returns an error. If error is not equal to nil, we, instead of sending ready response, we will say not ready and return so this is there. We will tweak it a bit more in future as our API complexity grows, but for now this satisfies whether our server is ready to receive connection as well. So let's run the server, make run server, and see. Okay, we can see that our handler has been registered and route is also registered. Let's go to insomnia. I'll create a new endpoint here, slash ready, and the URL will be slash ready. So let's call the endpoint, and as you can see, the database connection was successful, and that is the reason we got ready. If the connection was not successful, we would be receiving not ready. So that's all for this video. In the next video, we'll be looking into how you can inject logging into our server. That way our API would be ready, and we can start configuring the handler to do the CRUD operations. So see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.